Hi, welcome back to Real Life Revenge. The email popped up as I finalized the closing documents for a major healthcare tech merger. It was December 20th, and the Boston skyline shimmered in the early dusk outside my office windows. Eva, sweetheart, about Christmas this year, with your sister Julia bringing her new fiancé, he's a state senator, you know, we just think it might be best if you sat this one out. You understand, right? I stared at the message. Then I let out a short, humorless laugh. 18 years later, and nothing had changed. Despite everything I'd built, they still saw me as the family misfit. What my mother didn't know was that the consultant she rarely spoke about was now Ava Clark, 37, CEO of Beacon Partners, the firm quietly advising and investing in some of the largest private equity deals on both coasts. My assistant Leah buzzed through on the intercom. "The board of Wellspire Health is ready for your call." "Thanks, Leah," I said, adjusting the cuffs of my ivory blouse. My family still assumed I wore bargain outfits and scraped by, and honestly, I preferred it that way. 18 years ago, I'd stormed out of our Vermont farmhouse, refusing a junior position at Clark and Julia Associates, the family's financial services firm. "Don't be foolish," my father had barked. "You think you're smarter than all of us?" Julia had smirked from the dining table, swirling her wine. "Let her go play entrepreneur. She'll come crawling back." But I never did. I moved to Boston with a duffel bag and a second-hand laptop, determined to chart my own course. I built Beacon Partners from the ground up, working relentless hours and risking every dime. Now, Beacon quietly owned equity stakes in nearly half the businesses Clark and Julia Associates did deals with. There was a knock. "Miss Clark?" Leah said, stepping in with a contract folder. "Agreement from Clark and Julia Associates. It's ready for your signature." I smiled slowly. So, they needed me after all. I picked up the pen, then set it back down. "Actually, Leah, cancel it, and Merry Christmas." The irony felt sweeter than any holiday champagne. Clark and Julia Associates had spent the past 9 months desperate for a strategic partnership with Beacon Partners. They had no clue the firm they were courting belonged to the very daughter they'd pushed away. I glanced back at Mom's email, just trying to keep up appearances. Another notification blinked, a new email from Julia. "Ava, Mom told me about Christmas. Don't take it personally. You know how she is. Besides, with Ethan's career in politics, it's better this way. Maybe once you're really established, things can go back to normal." "I'm established?" The words echoed in my head as I stared at the 8-figure contract spread across my desk. This partnership would open Clark and Julia Associates to lucrative West Coast markets, a lifeline they desperately needed. From the reports Beacon had gathered, I knew how Dad had been bragging about sealing the deal, and all it required now was one thing: my signature. Leah returned, holding a sleek tablet. "Your father's on Zoom," she said gently. "He'd like to confirm tomorrow's signing ceremony." I took a breath and nodded, tapping to join the call. "Ava Clark speaking," I said, my voice cool and professional. I'd built my business career using my mother's maiden name to keep my true identity hidden. "Hey there, kiddo," my father boomed, his tone forcedly upbeat. So different from the man who once told my startup was a pipe dream. "Just checking everything's set for tomorrow. This deal is critical for our future." I thought of Christmas dinners I hadn't been invited to, of Julia's dismissive texts, of decades spent as the family ghost. "Actually, Mr. Clark," I said slowly, folding my hands, "I've been reviewing the final terms. I have a few concerns." He blinked. "Concerns?" But everything was approved. "Circumstances have changed," I replied evenly. "I think it's best we discuss this face to face. Bring the entire family tomorrow." The entire family?" His voice faltered. "Clark and Julia Associates is a family firm, isn't it?" "Well, my wife, Julia, Ethan," he stammered. Ava's not really all your children, I interrupted, my voice steely. Including Ava. A beat of silence. Understood, he murmured finally. Good, I said, and disconnected the call. Tomorrow would be fascinating. I leaned back in my chair, gazing out over the glittering Boston skyline. Tomorrow, my family would stride into Beacon Partners' offices, expecting to meet an anonymous CEO wielding quiet power. Instead, they'd stand face-to-face with a daughter they dismissed and left behind. Leah appeared in the doorway again. Shall I prep the main conference room for tomorrow's event? Yes, I said, my fingers tracing the bold letters on the contract. And Leah, have the photographers ready. I want every single reaction captured. That night, I stayed late, mapping out every detail. Tomorrow wasn't just a business deal. It was the reckoning I'd been waiting for. Christmas would never look the same again. By 5:30, I was already back at my desk. The 42nd floor conference room sparkled, the scent of fresh white peonies mingling with the polish on the sleek walnut table. The panoramic windows overlook the icy sweep of Boston Harbor. Leah appeared at my side, composed as ever. Your family just arrived, she murmured. Shall I bring them up? I glanced at my reflection in the glass wall. Gone were the simple cardigans and practical flats they remembered. Today, I wore a tailored charcoal Max Mara suit, navy Louboutin heels, and my grandmother's vintage Patek Philippe. The final gift from the woman who always believed in me. Let them wait, I said, smoothing my jacket. I'll make an entrance. 20 minutes later, I stood inside my private elevator, watching the floor numbers tick upward. My phone vibrated. Another email from my mother. Ava, where are you? Your father says this meeting is crucial. Don't embarrass us. I smirked and slipped the phone back into my pocket. Through the glass walls, I could see them all gathered inside the conference room. Dad pacing in his navy suit, Mom fussing with Julia's hair, Ethan rehearsing a politician's smile, and the senators on the board flipping through the documents, oblivious to the bombshell awaiting them. I gave Leah a nod. She pushed open the double doors. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Ava Clark, CEO of Beacon Partners. The room fell silent, electricity crackling in the air. My heels struck the marble as I stepped in. My mother's hand trembled, her espresso cup toppled over, spilling across the table's glossy surface. My father's face blanched, flickering between fury and shock. But it was Julia's stunned expression I'd remember most, her confident posture dissolving into wide-eyed disbelief. Good morning, everyone, I said, my voice calm as glass. Shall we get started? This is ridiculous, my father sputtered. You're just a consultant, aren't you? I lifted a sleek navy folder and flipped it open. Because according to these documents, I'm the CEO of the firm you've been courting, Beacon Partners. The senator sat up, leaning forward. I'm sorry, one said carefully. What exactly is happening here? Oh, I said, glancing at Ethan with an innocent smile. I'd have explained it properly at Christmas dinner, but funny thing, I wasn't invited. Something about preserving appearances. My mother opened her mouth. Ava, sweetheart, there's been a huge misunderstanding. As there has, I interrupted, my tone sharp as ice. I tapped a button on the console. The wall screen flared to life. Let's take a look, shall we? Here's your email, Mom, asking me to skip Christmas. Here's Julia implying my career was just a hobby. And here, I clicked again, is Dad begging for this partnership, completely unaware that the CEO he's been negotiating with is his invisible daughter. And trust me, I said, glancing around the stunned room, this story is only getting started. If you're as curious as they are about what happens next, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss the moment the tables truly turn. The room went utterly still. Leah moved gracefully between the chairs, placing fresh copies of the revised contracts in front of each person at the table. My father flipped through his pages, his hands trembling. These aren't the same terms, he stammered, eyes scanning the documents. They're not, I agreed evenly. I've made some revisions. I met his gaze unflinching. I've had plenty of time, actually years, to decide how I wanted this moment to unfold. No, He leaned forward, his voice rough.
You can't do this. Clark and Julia Associates has plans, expansion, investors. Much like I had plans. I cut in when I launched my own business with zero support, when I sat alone at holiday dinners while you toasted Julia's real success. That was different, my mother insisted, her voice trembling. We were trying to protect you from disappointment.
No. I rose slowly, letting my voice slice through the charged silence. You weren't protecting me. You were protecting your reputation, your precious social standing. I swept my arm toward the glittering view of Boston Harbor, and today the world finds out exactly who the Clarks really are. I smoothed the cuff of my blazer and stared my father down. The partnership is off, I declared, my tone cool and final. Beacon Partners will be acquiring Wellspire Health directly, and as Dad is surely realized by now, that cuts Clark and Julia Associates out of any access to West Coast healthcare markets. My father slumped into his chair, his face collapsing under the weight of realization. Without Beacon's capital or strategic alliance, Clark and Julia Associates would remain a small, regional player trapped in the past and left out of the modern economy. You can't do this, he whispered. We're family. I paused at the doorway, glancing back over my shoulder. Family, I echoed softly. That's funny, because just 2 days ago I was told I wasn't successful enough to be considered family. I tilted my head, pretending to think. I wonder, am I enough for Christmas dinner now? And with that, I turned and left. The silence behind me was absolute. Through the glass wall, I caught a glimpse of my mother dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief, my father staring blankly at the contract fragments, and Julia, confident, elegant Julia, slumped in her chair, her future dissolving around her. Leah fell into step beside me. That was intense. Are you okay? I glanced at my phone where yet another email from my mother blinked on the screen. Ava, please come to dinner. We can fix this. A faint smile tugged at my lips. Cancel Christmas dinner, Leah, I said. I've got better plans. The fallout arrived fast. Voicemails, frantic emails, pleading texts. Ava, we're still your parents. You're ruining us. This isn't how family solves problems. Please, just meet us face to face. Just us. I didn't respond. Beacon Partners finalized the Wellspire Health acquisition, while Clark and Julia Associates stock began a slow, humiliating decline. The business headlines were brutal. East Coast firm fails in expansion bid. Beacon Partners seizes healthcare deal. Clark legacy firm faces crisis after collapsed merger. A week later, I was in my office reviewing new acquisition prospects. When Leah appeared, "Your sister's here," she said gently. "Third time this week, but this time she's alone." I glanced at the security feed. Julia stood in the lobby, her usual poise gone. Her designer coat hung limp, her hair pulled back hastily, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "Send her up," I told Leah after a pause. Julia stepped in slowly, scanning the office she'd never imagined her little sister commanding. The harbor views, the art, the quiet power in the details. "Nice office," she murmured. "Bigger than mine at Clark and Julia, though I guess that doesn't mean much anymore." "What do you want, Julia?" She sank into a chair, her bravado gone. "Even called off the engagement," she said, voice breaking. I arched an eyebrow. The perfect political pair couldn't survive a few headlines? Julia let out a hollow laugh. He said he can't be tied to a sinking firm, that I no longer fit his image. The bitterness in her voice cut through the room. "Dad's drinking again," she whispered. "The board's in chaos. Mom can't even show her face at the club. Everything's falling apart." "Because of me?" I asked coolly. "No," Julia said, "because we built everything on appearances, just like my relationship. V3'd success like it had only one look, and I never fit it." "I deserved that," she whispered. "You deserved a lot more," I said, my voice tightening. "Do you know what it felt like watching you all toast each other's achievements while pretending I didn't exist? Mom celebrated every one of your promotions. She never even remembered what I did." "We thought you were struggling," Julia murmured. "We thought you were lost." You never asked, I snapped. Not once in 10 years did any of you ask about my company, my team, my vision. You were too busy dismissing me to see I surpassed you all. Julia's eyes filled with genuine tears. I was awful to you. Can you ever forgive me? I met her gaze. Forgiveness isn't the problem, Julia. Trust is, and that's something you'll have to earn. Suddenly, the door slammed open. My parents swept in, ignoring Leah's protest. Ava, my father barked, though his voice lacked conviction. This has gone on long enough. And what exactly do you think has gone on? I asked. You've made your point, my mother said, breathless, pearls trembling. You're successful. We were wrong. We see you now. Please stop punishing us. A sharp, hollow laugh slipped from my lips. You think this is about revenge? About proving I made it? I crossed to the window, Boston's lights twinkling beyond the glass. No, this is about consequences, about showing you that your dismissals and arrogance all come at a price. We're your parents, my father said, voice cracking. Everything we did was to protect you. No, I said. Everything you did was to protect yourselves, your image. I spun my tablet around, showing headlines. Beacon Partners seizes major healthcare market. Clark family firm on brink of collapse. Political engagement ends amid scandal. Well, I said coolly, congratulations. Your precious image. It's shattered. My father swallowed. What do you want from us? What I wanted was your belief in me when I built Beacon, your respect when I succeeded, to be treated like family, not like your family's mistake. But now, I don't want anything. My mother wept quietly. I felt nothing. I'd seen those tears before, when I chose engineering over finance, when I declined the family firm, when I refused to live by their rules. Please, Ava, my mother whispered. It's almost Christmas. Ah, yes, I said. The Christmas dinner, where I was too much of a disappointment to attend. Do you still care about appearances now that Julia's perfect fiancé walked away? My father stepped closer. Just tell us. Board seats, equity, a public apology? Name it. You still don't get it, I said. I don't want what you have. Beacon Partners is worth 10 times Clark and Julia Associates ever was. What I wanted was a family who valued me for who I am, not what I could do for your image. I pressed the intercom. Leah, please show them out and update the security list. Ava, please, my mother pleaded. We can fix this. No, Mom, I said quietly. You can't. You don't fix a decade of erasure with a desperate apology. As the door shut, silence washed over me. The city lights sparkled outside. Then my phone buzzed. Heard what went down? Your grandfather would be proud. Christmas dinner at my place this year, Margaret. A gentle smile spread across my face. Sometimes family isn't blood. It's the people who see your worth when no one else does. The next day, I assembled my team. We were launching our biggest move yet, acquiring 3 mid-tier firms in New England. Clark and Julia Associates wasn't on the list. A week later, Leah brought me a small gift, my grandfather's leather business card holder and a note from Margaret. He always knew you'd surpass them all. Looks like he was right. I set it beside my nameplate, a quiet reminder that true success comes from those who believe in you during the climb, not just after you've arrived. My family wanted an image. They got one, but not the one they expected. As for me, I earned mine, respected, fulfilled, and free. So when someone asked if I missed my family, I simply smiled and said, I've got a company to run, because that's worth more than any seat at their table. If you have ever felt underestimated, dismissed, or unseen, this story is yours too. I didn't build my life to prove them wrong. I built it to prove to myself that my quiet fire was real. And remember, you don't need their table. Build your own. One day, they'll wish they had a seat. If my story resonates, stand with me. Drop me a comment, share your triumphs, your scars, or simply say, I see you. We deserve respect for who we are, not who others expect us to be. Remember, build your own table. That's where true power and freedom begins.